Yo, it's your boy Vega Bomber, and welcome to Vega Bomberland. Well, I've seen a new movie, so now we're going to talk about it. Alright, so there was this new movie that came out that was called Birth of a Dragon. Not Birth of a Nation, Birth of a Dragon. And it was kind of like, well, it reminded me nothing of this movie. This movie, which I saw back in the 90s, and then ended up buying the collector's edition because, you know, it has widescreen on it. This movie actually was a little bit more about the dragon, where this new movie, Birth of a Dragon, not so much. Alright, let me just jump into it. I'll tell you what my mentality was before I saw this movie. The mentality was, I'm pretty sure they're not going to get the iconography of Bruce Lee down correct. Since that's probably a high likelihood that they probably won't get it right, I had to lower my expectations and come in here because really, this movie, if anything, is just a good rock'em sock'em martial arts action flick when it wants to be. When it's not, it's all about some white guy named Steve. So here's the synopsis. The synopsis is, though it's called Birth of the Dragon, it's about this white guy named Steve who's basically training under Bruce Lee himself. The man, the myth, the legend, and the man is not even very much in his own movie, really. He decides that, hey, I want to train with Bruce Lee, but then he hears that somehow that Wong Jack Man is also coming to town, and he's a Shaolin monk, as it were, in this film. And so somehow, hey, maybe I need to train with Bruce Lee, and then somehow train with him. Oh, and then in the process, he meets this Asian girl that he all of a sudden says, I want to sex you up. And that's all he's thinking about. He's just thinking about, I need to be with her. I need to have her. She's so beautiful. But problem is, she's part of the slave trade there with the I guess the Asian gang, if you will. The Asian gangsters have his girlfriend under lock and key, and she does whatever they say. So naturally, Steve, whose name in the movie is Steve McKee, wants to see if he can somehow free her. The only way he can do that, hey, I'll get Bruce Lee and Wong Jack Man to fight each other, and then what the gangsters can do is make money off the bets on that fight, and that will free my sweet Asian honey. Folks, I wish I was kidding, but that's the synopsis of The Birth of the Dragon. Alright, so with every movie, and we all know that there's no such thing as a perfect movie, but there are movies, in all the movies that I've ever seen, there's always some good, there's always some bad. Then there's my overall thought as whether I would buy it on DVD, like I did with Dragon, which, by the way, doesn't age nearly as well. But hey, Bruce Lee fan, I'll still watch it. Of course, the best Bruce Lee films, Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon, yeah, I've got those hideaway too. So that's in my secret vault collection. But I have those too. Those are my favorite Bruce Lee films, in case you're wondering. So I guess I'll just start with the good. And the good on this film is really good. And what I'm talking about are the fight sequences. So the fight sequences, if this whole movie would have just been fight sequences and no talking, it probably would be an Oscar-nominated film, probably in this case, because the fight scenes were shot well, and the choreography in the fight scenes, I thought, were superb. Now, the action, or the way that the actors portrayed their characters, I also thought that was pretty good, as it relates to Wong Jack Man, I think it's Xia Yu, and then, of course, Philip Ning, who was portraying Bruce Lee. I think both of them did a great job of personifying their characters, these two different ideologies. Bruce Lee is the young, upcoming punk who just wants to kick people's butts, you know, sweep the leg, sweep the leg. And then, meanwhile, Wong Jack Man is kind of more like Professor X or Martin Luther King Jr. It's all about peace, and I have a dream, and I have a dream that I would never sweep your leg, right? And so this is great, right? Because this is going to be a clashing of ideologies, and that's awesome, because that's the way it should be. That's like Daredevil versus Punisher. That's like Batman versus Superman. Oh, yeah. No, they were kind of both jury, so that didn't work there. But here, perfect. So I think Philip Ing, who played Bruce Lee, did a great job. He did the mannerisms, and he didn't overdo the mannerisms, because if you overdo the mannerisms, then it becomes like a caricature of the character, and don't do that to my Bruce Lee. Don't do that to the dragon, okay? He deserves somebody to come in and give it some serious acting weight, and I believe he did that. Now, Shai Li, I believe, or Yu, who played Wong Jackman, he did a great job of just playing kind of what you would see, almost the tropish, peace, Eastern monk type who's just very calm. And so again, you needed that because to show that clash between them, you needed it. Just trust me, you needed it, and it was done well. Those are the good things about it. Now, the camera angles, when they did the fight scenes too, I thought were pretty good as well. And they didn't go way over the top and do any crouching tiger, hidden dragon type crap where everybody's flying off of rooftops. They didn't go that far, and I don't really care for that. And if you like that movie, okay, you liked it. It's just, I didn't. So yeah, the camera shots were done well. I thought that they backed up. I thought that they got in close. And I think what really makes this fight scene work so well in this movie, and there was probably 2 really, really good fight scenes. There's probably 5 fight scenes total, but 2 really just jaw-dropping, pull you in, sitting on the edge of your seat, wondering who's going to really get the last shot, right? Even though it's Birth of the Dragon, so you figure the dragon has to win. But I liked how in this fight, and by the way, Marvel, pay attention to how to do a fight scene. Go watch this. Because in most of the fight scenes you see in the Marvel films, people just punch each other, they hit each other, they fall out, there's really nothing to it. But here, you could see the anger, the frustration, the fear, the anxiousness, the sweat, everything. They would pull in close and let you see these guys' faces. And so it was real. It was style versus style. I mean, they were coming after each other. And it was, that's what you want to see. Fight scenes, say that 2 times fast, should have tension. It shouldn't just be, oh, I punched you and you went out, and there's no sound other than you hitting the ground. That's not it. You want to hear the guttural sound of punches and clashing, and that skin hitting flesh and hitting bone. I mean, it's good, and they didn't overdo it. So that's what I would say is the great part about this film. Okay, well, yeah, unlike this guy, this movie, there were a lot more negatives to The Birth of the Dragon than this one. This one just doesn't maybe age as well, right? But Birth of the Dragon, how much time do you guys got? Because there's a lot to talk about here. So first of all, I'll go with the thing that's probably the most egregious to me, and that was the fact that the storyline and the plot were ridiculous. It didn't match the title. This movie ended up being about Steve, as I said in the synopsis. There was very little about how Bruce Lee became Bruce Lee, because this was set in the 60s, and by then, at this age, by that time, 64, he would have been about 23, 24 years old. So this is supposed to show us how he got to become not just Bruce Lee, the kind of cocky, cocksure street fighter guy, but the philosopher that we know that also went off to college and everything else, and is definitely a thinker. In this movie, you don't see that as much because it's supposed to be the birth of him. But again, it becomes about Steve. And so what I really, really thought was a disservice, probably number 1, was just the storyline. Why? This is what you wanted to do, was focus on a Westerner rather than the guy that was supposed to be about? I don't think that's good. And by the way, Steve wasn't characterized well. Who cared about him? Nobody cared about him. It wasn't understood why he wanted this girl so bad. We didn't understand why she would even think he was great to go after, or be a catch, if you will. He's just a guy who's wandering around, who's a little angry, who's in San Francisco in the 60s. He's kind of a drifter. He's the leather jacket man and the motorcycle guy that doesn't really fit in anywhere with anybody. But we're supposed to care about him in a movie called The Birth of a Dragon, though he's not the dragon. You see how I'm kind of, I think you're getting it right now. I would say that the second disgusting thing about this movie was the advertising, because the advertising fooled you into thinking that this movie was going to be about this epic fight between these 2 martial artists with contrasting styles and ideologies. And while that was in there, that wasn't the main point. And so if you watch the commercial, you got jacked up and thought this was going to be something. I know I did. And then when you go watch it, you're going to be pulled back, and you're just going to go, wow. Seriously? That's crazy. So, yeah, whoever decided to do the marketing campaign for this, fired. You should get straight up fired, because that was crap. Whoever wrote the screenplay for this, you should get fired. Right? You have to know that people are passionate about their Bruce Lee. you just can't throw any old thing out there about Bruce Lee. It better be good, especially since we hadn't seen a Bruce Lee film in a while. So, come on now. That was just bad. Really, really bad. So, other than just talking about the marketing, the acting, the script, the plot points, it just whenever there wasn't a fighting scene, it just wasn't worth it. It just made you feel like, okay, I just need to sit through this in order to get to the fight scenes. And then even the way the film wraps up is a little cheesy, but at least they gave us another fight scene, so I gave it a little extra nod for that. So overall, let me set this guy down. Overall, what did I think? Well, I'll say it this way. Because I went in with a lowered expectation as to how true or how close they were going to get to a real Bruce Lee story, I kind of set my brain on numb a little bit to know that that was going to happen. So that didn't bother me as much. I will say this. The film, if you talk about entertainment value, I did find it entertaining. Of course, when they were fighting, right? I did find it entertaining. I did like the character of Wong Jack Man. I thought Xia Yu played him well. And I thought Phil Ming, although he doesn't look a lot like Bruce Lee, I thought he copied the mannerisms and had it down tight without overdoing it and making it too cheesy. I felt like he did the right on time and not too many of those, you know, right? He didn't go way over with that, and he had that nice footwork. I loved it. So for that, I will say that the movie is worth seeing, but I'd probably go see it at the matinee, peeps. The matinee, because anything outside of that, you might get robbed. You're being robbed if you go pay full price for this movie. Because as a movie plays, no, it's got way too many problems that will take you out of the movie. But as a piece of entertainment that's that with the action that draws you in, and if that's good enough for you, then yeah, you'll like it. So I will just say this movie is good enough for the matinee, but not prime time. Not during the prime time, folks. So anyway, those are my thoughts. What did you think of this film? Why don't you meet me in the comments section below, and we'll talk about it. Are you a hardcore Bruce Lee fan and therefore really, really upset by some of the choices they made? Or did that not bother you at all? Did you just like seeing action flicks and you just enjoyed the fight scenes for what they were? Well, either which way you landed on that type of deal, I'll meet you in the comment section. Anyway, it's your boy Vega Bomber, and I am out. You!